looks like it's starting to get dark in the mornings. Yay, winter. Anyway, with all this talk about the DACA and Dreamers and working in a capitalistic society, and how like people are saying that immigrants, as long as immigrants are willing to work hard and be a productive member of society, then they should be able to stay, or they should be able to come in. And it just reminds me of how this country looks at its people. Like, if you can't work, then you're not worth a whole lot in this society, which fucking sucks, and it's ridiculous. And but I also think it's ironic that the working poor is looked down upon so much in this country as well. I mean, like, no matter how you split it, minimum wage is not enough to survive. I don't know how people do it. I had a period in my life where I had moved out on my own for the first time, and my boyfriend at the time kind of left me high and dry, and he didn't move in with me, so I was supporting myself unexpectedly. And I had to work 3 jobs. I worked 2 full-time jobs. I basically worked 8 to 10, and then a lot on the weekends. And both jobs were minimum wage, and I still could not afford rent. But this is where my privilege comes into play, because I was able to live off credit cards because my credit is really good, just because I've had the benefit of parents who were able to support me while I was a teenager. So if my parents were poor and they wouldn't have been able to support me as a teenager, chances are I would not have had 3 or 4 credit cards to rely upon. So I mean, I definitely can't say that I understand what it's like to be working poor, because that was just a very short period in my life. It was less than a year. But it really frustrates me. Like, I worked all the fucking time. I didn't have time to shower. I didn't have time to read or watch TV. Like, I worked and I slept. I worked and I slept. And just to think about people, like, living that way every day, like, that's your entire life. And you only get one life, and that's it. You know, you're waking up and working. And people live like that every day, and society looks down on them. What the fuck for? Like, it's not their fault that minimum wage in this country is a fucking joke. Like, I just get real fired up about it. And then, of course, you know, people are like, well, they should have gone to school, and that way they can have a good job. When I was working 3 jobs, I had a degree. And the only reason I have my job now is because I was in the right place at the right time, and I knew the right people. That's the only reason. And a lot of times, the working poor, you know, their parents are poor, so their parents have to work all the time. So they don't get help with their schoolwork. A lot of the times, they have to work during school. I had to work just a part-time job at high school, just because my mom can't work, and we just needed a little bit of extra income. But it was only part-time, and I could have quit, and we would have been okay. It would have been a struggle, but we would have been okay. So to imagine someone who has no choice, they have to work to help their family out. They don't have time to spend on schoolwork. I spent fucking hours after school on my schoolwork, and if I worked full-time, I would not have had time for that. So then obviously someone who can't do their schoolwork, they just don't have the time, they don't make good grades, they can't get into college. What the fuck now does society want them to do? Like, it just seems like we're placing blame in the wrong direction, and it's fucking ridiculous. And to compound matters, like, what really grinds my gears is that people who are millionaires are looked up to as, like, heroes. Like, oh, they've worked so hard for their money. Like, they're an aspiration for every American. And most of the time, these super wealthy people, they grew up wealthy. So they had more resources, more opportunities. And I think it's just ironic that that people say they've worked so hard for their money. You can't take their money away from them. They've worked so hard. What they mean to say is they've worked for their money. They have worked. Period. Like, in some cases, they don't even have to work. So, just to summarize, in America, we idolize billionaires. They are our heroes. You know, we have aspirations to be just like them, and we think that they've worked so hard for their money. But in reality, the people who have really worked very hard for their money are seen as garbage and second-class citizens and failures. Like, what the fuck kind of shit is that? Not even to like get into the whole dynamic between poverty and people of color. Like, it blows my mind that people don't see the correlation between wealthy white people and entire communities of poor people of color. Like, really, you don't get that? Okay, you don't want to get that.